Hi there, I'm Dr. Stephanie Minchin, a clinical psychologist, yoga teacher and with training in yoga therapy, and I'm here to share with you a reflective writing exercise based on kindness. This is part of the Mental Health Awareness Week programme and also aligned with More Yoga's project called MoreMind, which is integrating psychology into sort of yogic practices and meditation for positive mental health and emotional well-being. So the exercise that we are going to do today is based on a therapy called Cognitive Behavioural Therapy. So just as it sort of says on the tin really, cognitive being thoughts, behaviour being our actions, the things that we do, and actually seeing the links between how what we think impacts how we feel, how we behave, and also, of course, our bodily sensations. So why is this important? The mind is a powerful tool. We have over 50 to 70,000 thoughts per day. I don't know who counted them, but science tells us that's so. Apparently we have an equal number of positive and negative thoughts, but with our sort of default for negative attention, it's a bias. We tend to sort of hone in on the more difficult, challenging or critical thoughts that we have rather than looking at the positive ones. So get yourselves comfortable, grab a pen, a paper, and we will begin. Okay. When you're ready, I'd like you to draw out a circle, and in that circle place 4 boxes. One that says cognitive, so thoughts, you can label it thoughts. Another box that says behaviour. Another box that says feelings, so emotions. And another one that says body, so physical sensations, bodily experiences. And firstly, we're going to look at something called the vicious cycle. So actually looking at how all of these 4 boxes link together and integrate and influence and interact with one another. This vicious cycle is what really plays on our inner critic. So we all have one, we all have the negative thoughts that just sort of makes us normal human beings. And we're going to be looking at the patterns, firstly with this vicious cycle. So I'd like you to first consider when the inner critic in yourself is really loud, what are the sorts of things that it says? So it might be one familiar phrase that sort of plagues you a bit. It might be something that pops up in times of stress. Actually just almost writing a sentence as if that inner critic was talking, was saying something out loud. That sentence could be something like, I am X, Y, or Z, or something which more sort of plays on ideas of what we should be. So in therapy I always think that the word should is very powerful and lends to a lot of comparison. I should be X, Y, or Z. That's where we sort of put pressure on ourselves and our expectations. So just identifying the thought. It might be one in particular, it may be several. And when you've done that, now moving over to the box that says behaviour. So when that inner critic is loud, when that critical voice is uninvited but present, what are the sorts of things it makes you do? So here we're moving from thoughts to actions. The action might be something that's acting outside of your values. It might be a behaviour that's quite destructive. It might be a self-sabotage. Just looking at when that inner critic is around, that negative voice, the critical thoughts, what does it make you do? The actions and the behaviour. It might be that you do more of something or do less of something, but focusing on the actions. And now moving on to the third box, emotions. So when we're being critical, how do we feel? Really try and name the feeling here. Is it sadness? Is it worry? Is it stress? Is it anger, disappointment, fear? The list is endless. Can you really identify that feeling? What's the felt sense of your experience when the inner critic is around? And then moving on to the fourth and final box, body, physical sensations. So really feeling and sensing into that emotion that is sort of rising when the inner critic is voiced. How does the body respond? What is the body communicating to you? Is it, for example, something like butterflies in the stomach? Is it tension in the shoulders? This is really sort of tapping into more of the physiology, the nervous system. Is it a state of stress, a state of angst? But this is actually almost an act of listening, so listening to the body, paying attention to its signals. What can you notice in the body in this vicious cycle? And as we've completed the 4 areas of this cycle, can you see how every aspect of those boxes influences the other? So we can draw a line all around the circle, but also across the circle. So that the thoughts, of course, affect how we feel, our body experience, our behaviours impact emotions, bodily sensations, thoughts. It's all a mishmash together, all interacting and all influencing. And actually that cycle is one that we get trapped into. So why is it we're firstly identifying this vicious cycle? This vicious cycle is what plagues on our fear system. It increases our stress. So in our nervous system, we go to sympathetic activity. That's the state of activation that then becomes stress. The heart's racing faster, tension in the body, thoughts are racing, we get stuck in catastrophic thinking, thinking the worst, all of these unhelpful thinking styles, jumping to conclusions. We start to become attached to the negative. And this is, as I said, plaguing on the fear system. When we are stuck in this vicious cycle, we have increases in the stress hormone, cortisol, and certain aspects of our brain are actually not functioning as well, as efficiently as they could be. So now if we look beyond the vicious cycle and start to instead create a virtuous one. If we can create a virtuous cycle, so a positive one, then what we are doing is trying to quieten down the inner critic and boost the kinder voice. So on both a psychological, the mind, and a physiological, the body level, we are trying to soothe the system. It's like giving yourself a hug. It's like telling yourself, hey, I'm safe. It's okay, I'm here. What we are trying to do is boost positive experiences instead. So now I'd like you, in line of Mental Health Awareness Week and the focus on kindness, to now almost rewrite the story. We move from the inner critic to now thinking about the inner kind voice, the more positive one. Sometimes this is an unfamiliar place for us. Even the thought of saying kind words to ourselves or being kind can be, an unfamiliar place, despite us perhaps having kind actions to others. So now I'd like you to draw your second cycle. In the same way you made the first template, 4 boxes through this cycle. One is labelled thoughts, one is behaviour, one is emotions, and one is body. So just take a moment to draw that out. And we'll start from the top again, from the thoughts. When you're being kinder to yourself, can you identify a particular thought that you have? If this is hard to do, maybe imagine something that a friend would say about you or to you in a kind way. Maybe it's like a compassionate other saying something kind. Maybe it's that sort of boost of encouragement, that positive sentiment like, you're doing okay. Can you bring that alive by giving it a voice and identifying a kind thought? And now moving on from that kind thought, can you start to look at the behaviour? When you're in a place of being kinder to yourself or having more kind thoughts, what's the behaviour that's associated? What sort of things do you do? It might be simple actions related to our daily living, eating, sleeping, socialising. What are the sorts of things that you do when you're in a more positive and relaxed place and kindness is around? Moving from thoughts and behaviour over to emotions and feelings. Tap into the feeling that you experience when your thoughts are a little kinder. Here we're looking at more the sort of states of relaxation where we feel calm. Think about the positive emotions that you experience when that inner voice is kinder. Maybe it's safety, contentment, joy. Maybe it's one feeling that's really obvious. And from that felt sense of really feeling the emotion, what's the body telling you? So on a physiological level, we might be more relaxed. That's the parasympathetic activity, the relaxation response. What do you notice in your body when your thoughts are kinder, your actions are kinder, and your feelings are more positive? This is paying attention to the physical sensations. So the body is a powerful tool. When we can start to attune and listen to it, it offers us many messages. What can you notice? And now looking as a whole at this virtuous cycle, can you, again, in the very same way, see how the thoughts, feelings, behaviours and body experience are all interactive? Perhaps it's chicken and egg, or maybe you know that there's a particular aspect that comes first for you. And now take a moment to look at those 2 cycles that you have drawn and identified. You have the vicious cycle, the trap of the critic, and you have the virtuous cycle, so the vicious versus the virtuous. The vicious cycle plays on our fear. The virtuous cycle plays on our soothing. What we are trying to do here is, by looking at these particular patterns, how kindness can be really promoting a better sense of our emotional well-being. When we do that, our body responds by lowering the stress hormone cortisol, and by boosting happy hormones like dopamine and oxytocin. Again, that idea of giving yourself a hug, a pat on the back. And looking at these two cycles, can you give a story to each? What's the story that you tell yourself when you are stuck in a negative trap? And as if you're writing a headline, maybe write that down. What's the story? And in the same way, looking at the virtuous cycle, how can you reframe and re-author your experience to tell a more positive story about yourself and your experience? Just pay attention to the language that you use, the words that we say, because the stories that we tell ourselves are a frame of reference and have very powerful messages. Can you look at the virtuous cycle as a story of strength and growth and resilience, a story of positivity? So giving each a story, each a headline. Okay. And now we've completed the exercise with the writing. I'd like you to just come to a seated, comfortable position, or lying down if you prefer. And if it's comfortable for you, lower your gaze or close your eyes. And then we've done lots of thinking, just moving from the mind into the body. Maybe taking a few fuller and lighter breaths, as if the breath is soothing and nurturing the body. And from here, perhaps inviting the words of your virtuous story, your virtuous cycle, your story of strength and growth and positivity. Perhaps repeating the words of that story as a mantra in the mind's eye, and almost feeling it like little drops of kindness just landing on the body. And with each drop, allowing yourself to feel soothed and nurtured. And from here, I'd like to share with you a few words. So these words are from an ancient Chinese poet and philosopher who might be familiar to some of you. It's Lao Tzu. So Lao Tzu says, "Watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, for it becomes your destiny." those words to land. Now bring one hand onto the heart, one hand onto the lower belly. Repeating the mantra of your positive story. 3 times as an affirmation and a commitment to kindness. When you're ready, let's bring the hands together. Inhale fully into the heart and exhale out the mouth. Starting to blink the eyes open, just regrounding into the space. So, raising the prayer to the forehead. Bowing, namaste. So I'd like to thank you for participating. I hope that it's offered some insights, some self-reflection and curiosity. Know this is a tool that you can return to check in on. So thank you for your time. Do feel free to be in touch. I am the yoga psychologist, and I'm offering this as part of Mental Health Awareness Week and the MoreMind project, which is offered by More Yoga. So thank you for joining. I wish you well.